Ja, herzlich willkommen zu einem neuen CEO-Roster. Ja, ich bin kurz entschlossen doch zu einer Präsentation dazugestoßen. Es geht wie immer über Öl und hier geht es vor allem über Öl in Indonesien. Und es ist die erste Konferenz mit einem Unternehmen, das auch in Calgary sitzt. Also ich bin eigentlich schon gespannt, was uns die Company uns so präsentieren wird, beziehungsweise was uns der Richard präsentieren wird. Und ja, schauen wir mal, was so dementsprechend rauskommt. Ich habe, wenn ich ehrlich bin, keine Ahnung, um was es geht. Aber in einer kurzen Zeit werden wir es doch wissen, was los ist. Ja, dann schauen wir mal und füllen in Richard ein bisschen auf den Zahn.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I do speak just a little bit of German still. Guten Morgen, guten Abend. So thank you for having me. Dankeschön. So yeah, I guess a little bit about myself. First, as you alluded to, I've been in the business for over 25 years. I started my career here in Canada, in Alberta, with a company called Coke Exploration, where I developed quite a lot of heavy oil and shallow natural gas for my first 10 years. And subsequent to that, I wanted to get going internationally and pursue international opportunities, having grown up in places like Indonesia and Sumatra, Papua New Guinea, Peru, Australia. So I started to work with a company out of London, England called Premier Oil, and working on a project in Albania in 2001. Turned that project around. It was basically in a very early phase of redevelopment, and we drilled 20 wells there, and subsequently the company Premier decided in 2003, 2004 to leave, and I started a company with some fellow co-founders called Bankers Petroleum, which in the first few years, up until about end of 2008, basically built the first 7,000 barrels a day on the platform of recompleting existing heavy oil wells, 2,000 meters there. So a lot of onshore challenges, obviously an international environment that was quite new to the world at the time. And then subsequently got it going to exports, got it moving towards horizontal wells, and the company eventually moved to about 20,000 barrels a day. That's Bankers Petroleum. And subsequent to that, they sold to the Chinese here just last year for about $500 some million. So very proud of what we achieved there. And now on to Sonoro. I was looking for the next big opportunity, and joined Sonoro in 2010, and we jumped onto what we felt was going to be a very large resource play, and that was in Iraq. Unfortunately, everybody knows the story of how Iraq has turned out and the situation over there, and so we decided to move on from that last year, and where to go next, and that sort of led us to the region you see on the map here, and basically Indonesia, having being a very at one point being an OPEC and a large producer. So we saw a lot of opportunities there, and we're able to jump on one last summer and restructure the company and go from there.
Okay. You just recently had a couple of news releases about and how do you pronounce that? Is that Budong, or what's the right pronunciation of the project?
I think it's called, I pronounce it that way anyways, Budong. So on the west side of the island of Sulawesi, and Indonesia's got some 17,000 islands, but clearly this is one of the bigger islands, but very limited oil and gas production on the island. So.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So run us through the corporate profile. So, and by the way, the share price had some pretty good appreciation over the last couple of days.
Yes. I think, we're starting to get the story out about the opportunity that we're faced with in Indonesia. And with that, we're getting some more interest. And of course, we're doing some additional marketing. We've been a very tightly held company over the past years, which you can see on this pie chart here. We do have 177 million shares out at the moment. We just finished a $3.6 million raise, and that's to move us forward on our appraisal well drilling in Badong. Of that 177 million, you'll see that management and board, we have about 31%. Then our close friends and family have about another 24%, and then the other shareholders that came in this recent financing, they've got about 41%. So at the moment, a lot of 120 million of these shares is restricted until I think the end of August, at which time they become free trading. So yeah, we're trading at about 10 cents. Market capitalization about 17 million, and our focus is Indonesia. It is Badong license. We've got when we took it on last year, we needed to get an extension from the Indonesian government. We did some work. We then showed them that we're ready to move forward. We got that extension here earlier this year, and now we're working towards spudding a well here in August and drilling our appraisal well of our first resource, which we call the Lariang or LG prospect, and that's based on independent resource report, prospective resource report, unrisked. Could be a 16 million barrel field recoverable. So that's not small by any means, but it's not large. But at the same time, this could open up a whole new area for us with the acreage position that we've got, and being that there is no other oil and gas production right in this area. There are in other parts of the island. And I think last point I'd just make is that while we have this one well and we're drilling this here in August, we're also looking at a number of other opportunities. We do see a number of other opportunities in Indonesia. I guess that sort of takes me to why Indonesia. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, let me ask you actually two questions. So the extension of the license was for 1 full year, right? When you did it earlier this year. So is that common that the license is only extended for 1 year, which to me seems to be pretty short term, or are there any opportunities to have it extended for, let's say, 3 or 5 years? And what are the parameters for the extension? So is it just paying a fee, or do you have to do specific work? So what are kind of the parameters of the license? And the second question would be, because you mentioned you're looking for other opportunities in Indonesia. So are you going to focus on Indonesia, or are you going to on occasion going to broaden it into other parts of Asia?
Right. No, great. Yeah, I guess with respect to your first question and the extension of the license, this license it's a production sharing contract, and most PSCs, as we refer to them, they'll have a 7 to 10 year exploration period in which you're able to prove that you've got a commercial discovery. And once you have a commercial discovery, then you would move that into a production license, which gives you another 20 years. So this license, last year when we picked it up, and we knew the risk of this when we picked it up, we also knew that the environment was pretty tough. Obviously, the oil and gas industry is reducing the amount of capital spending. The oil price, commodity prices have been significantly lower, and activity is generally lower around the world, but also that's the same in Indonesia. So we only had to the end of the year to basically prove up a commercial discovery. We were at the end of the 10-year term. So giving an extension significantly longer is not very common, but giving us the time to be able to follow through on our program. And naturally, I mean, the government wants to see activity and moving this forward, and that's what we've done. And we're now proving. So one of the conditions that they did put in is that we drill a well here by the end of August, and that's exactly what we're doing. So with respect to other opportunities, is it just Indonesia we're focusing on? I mean, at the moment, we've actually been looking at a number of projects throughout Southeast Asia. Again, it's such a growth area. high demand for oil and gas, and typically import oil and gas into the various countries. But I would say because we have a team in Jakarta, we know Indonesia quite well, that we're spending a bit more time on those potential opportunities, and we're also looking at other ones as the opportunities arise.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Richard, two questions or
Yes.
some question on the drilling. What kind of drilling is this? How deep you must go, and what are the capex and what we can expect? Or what is your goal?
Right.
Your major
All
goal?
very good questions. Yeah. So I guess I'll try and summarize, because I think as we go through the presentation, all of those items will be addressed in more detail. But effectively, it's onshore, it's shallow, it's 500 meters is our target depth. It does come from a region, an area where there's a lot of oil seeps. We are offsetting an existing well that was drilled previously for deeper depths that had good response on the logs when they drilled through the shallow sections. I'll explain a little bit more as we go on. So it is. We also expect it to be a light oil as well, somewhere in the 30 plus API range. And from a productivity standpoint, there are no analogs, on Sulawesi itself, so it's pretty hard to say what we might get from a productivity basis. But that's effectively why it's an appraisal well. We know the structure's there. We know, or at least we believe, the structure is there based on the seismic we have, based on the previous well drilled. We believe that if there's to trap that in this structure. And now what we need to do is improve the reservoir quality, the productivity, and that's why we consider it an appraisal well.
Is there infrastructure in place there? So if you hit something and you can convert it then to a production well and bring it then to the market?
Yeah, no. So the infrastructure is I guess it depends on how you define infrastructure. It's not an oil and gas producing area, so there is no oil and gas infrastructure per se, such as, let's say, pipelines, refineries, that kind of thing, which you'd see quite often. But we are only about just trying to think here, 12, 15 kilometers from the nearest port. There is good development in the island in the form of roads. This area has been cultivated and is currently producing palm oil. If you went back 20, 30 years ago, this would be swamp type land and be more difficult to access. But because it's been drained, access is relatively easy. We're close to the port because palm oil is in the area. There are the types of tankage and facilities that allow export. And the refinery that we would expect to go to is just across on the island of Kalimantan. Balikpapan has a very large refinery, 280 kilometers across the strait. So not a lot unlike how when we started my last project in Albania, we used to sell everything internally to an existing refinery, but it was in difficult shape. And we looked at alternatives, and we quickly started exporting via the domestic port to refineries just across in Italy. So very similar.
Okay. And as you, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
More, sorry. This area, the license itself, how many holes you can drill there? What do you expect, or is it the only that you can make the confirmation from this license, or what's how the inventory looks like?
Let me pull up. So here's just a quick map of a little bit more of a blow up. Badong is on the west side of Sulawesi. And this is on the Kalimantan. Just in this area here is the Balikpapan refinery.
Mm-hmm.
The actual block itself, this is used to be a much larger block. It's been relinquished down to just 20% of the original size. We've kept two main blocks, the Karama block in the south and the Lariang block in the north. This is where basically we would be drilling, just offsetting this LG1 well. When you look at the structure itself, sorry, there's a blow up. You see a lot of seeps along the west side. A couple of previous existing wells that were drilled back in the late 1890s, actually. So again, we know there's hydrocarbons here. It's been produced. It's been successful in the past, and thus, basically, we're coming back in, and we want to repeat that success using newer technology, newer drilling techniques. This LG1 well was actually drilled in 2011, so not that long ago. They went for a deeper Eocene target. They had a kick of gas and condensate to surface from about 650, 750 meter depths. We're not pursuing the gas per se here because gas needs a bit more infrastructure to get it to market versus oil, but we see several structures just above it. And this is here's the basic rollover structure. Here was the original well. Here's the original 3 shows that we see on logs. And as they drilled through, they saw in mud cuttings. But this was not their target. They were going much deeper, and therefore they had a very big hole. They had multiple layers of casing, and they also had a heavyweight mud. So that created some damage to the reservoir and making the petrophysics more difficult to interpret. So we're moving up the structure. The reserves that we have, or resources, sorry, not reserves, that we have calculated from McDaniels really takes these sands into account. But as we move up structure, we see it gets quite a bit thicker. So we could have significantly more. Now, with respect to your question of size-wise, what would this, what could this represent from the number of wells? Just based on a standard 160 acre spacing, being that it is lighter oil, you don't need to typically go to tighter spacing, we'd be looking at around a 40 well type development. And with respect to rates, I guess we can't pinpoint the rates, but I guess our hope is that it's somewhere between 100 to 300 barrels a day per well, and possibly more. Certainly, Indonesia has shown from shallow wells that they can produce some significant volumes. It's really a function of reservoir quality, and until we determine what that reservoir quality is, it's pretty hard for us to say. Now, I will say that one additional advantage that we have here in our economics is that because this well was drilled, and because that other well was drilled in the southern part of the block, Raider, a lot of money has already been spent here. And under petroleum sharing contracts, what you're able to do is put that into a cost recovery pool, and you're able to recover that cost from revenue as you produce before taking out profit splits and such. So that makes the economics more attractive, given that 80 million-ish has been spent here in the past.
Yeah, well, great, thank you. What are the costs for one of the shallow holes?
So one of these shallow wells, it's another thing that we're doing quite different that previously. The costs, in Canada, we would drill these things for 200,000-300,000 Canadian. Unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure there, the same kind of activity, and we are on an island somewhat away from activity, so we have to mobilize and demobilize. But effectively, our this well that we're drilling now, we budgeted for about 1.4 million US. But I would expect that with a larger development, 40 well type development, that we will be able to significantly reduce those costs, somewhere definitely below $1 million per well. I know if we're actually considering a second well here, assuming we have success, we actually have 7 locations from an environmental permit that allows us to go to, so we could quickly move to a second well and drill a second well here. And our budget for that second well would be $1 million because we don't have to mobilize and demobilize the same equipment. And if you get into more efficiencies, larger programs, I would think that that should be able to come down, somewhere in that 500,000 to 700,000 range, which again works on the economics. You start talking about 40 wells, 100 barrels, 300 barrel a day, and you can make this quite attractive, even with the oil prices that we see today. And that's one of the reasons why we also like this play, and in particular Indonesia, because we can find develop opportunities that really lacking capital, but are decent in size, that we can make the economics work for our shareholders and, of course, for the government and people of Indonesia. I'm just going to run back a couple slides here. Just
go to slide. Go to slide number 4, where I think that's a picture of the work camp where the workers are sleeping, right?
Yeah. Well, this is sort of going to be my opening. It's like why Indonesia? Well, I'd love to say it's where the blue waters and the beaches.
Actually, Joe, we are going on a side. We're going on a side visit, I guess, right? Side visit.
Yes, side visit.
I actually haven't been to the beach in Indonesia yet, by the way, since I lived there 5 years ago. But I mean, it's and as I think I mentioned earlier, Indonesia is quite predominant, or has quite a predominant oil and gas history, going all the way back to the 1880s. In fact, Sulawesi, the first well was drilled back in 1898 in the shallow seeps I was mentioning. So it does have a very fast developing economy. Its demand is outstripping its supply. You see this in the news all the time. The Indonesian government is trying to become more attractive to international investors. You see here on the right, you see that the production is dropping. You see that their balance is now in the red, so they're importing actually close to 1 million barrels of oil. I mean, Indonesia's got about 250 million people. Yet, even though it's 5 times the size population than the UK, I believe it has half of the power generation. So it's not just oil. As mentioned, there is very attractive gas opportunities. Some of the prospects we're looking at are not just oil, but have a combination of oil and gas. As long as you can get the gas to market, your gas prices compared to Canada and US, around $3 an MCF. Indonesia is somewhere between $6 and $10. So again, you have some higher costs, of course, but you also have the higher revenues as well. So, and our team as well has a lot of experience here in Indonesia. Not myself, not so much, other than living there when I was a child. But certainly my experience internationally in other jurisdictions. I've seen a lot of places, and Indonesia is certainly a great opportunity, a great place for us to be into work. I'll just quickly mention our board. So Chris Atkinson, he's our chairman of the board. He's ex-Arco, ex-Shell. He's done a number of other junior oil and gas companies, both private and public. I'll refer to a couple more here in just a moment. David Winter, he's got over 27 years experience internationally, all the way from BP to currently Horizon Petroleum. He has worked in Indonesia for Canadian Oxy a number of years back, and so is quite familiar with the geology and the environment. David Robinson really has been around for, again, a long time, involved in a number of companies, having raised a lot of money. Richard Kerr, he's our director in London, previously with BP, Vitol, Glencore, more on the commercial side. So we've got a very well-balanced board. And then myself and Bill Marp down in Indonesia, who looks after Indonesia for us. We've also added Dean Calloway. He just came from another private company. I think spent the last 4 years there. And of course, we have two local Indonesians that are great to work with. Henning, that is a geologist, School of Mines, Colorado, as well as Alan Northman, that has worked Schlumberger, Pertamina, is an engineer by trade. So we get a very well balanced, experienced team.
Okay.
Few team track record. Here's a few of the companies people recognize. It's Serica. They'll also recognize Mitra, which is now Jadestone, and of course myself with Baker's Petroleum. Another one that the team in Indonesia just did in 2013, after only 2 years, is they basically took it from an initial investment to final sale to ConocoPhillips, one of the projects on the island of Kalimantan, about 20 times the initial investment. So very, very successful in getting these types of smaller companies up and running and making a return to.
Okay, so yeah, what's kind of your end game? So is the plan to go into production yourself, or are you looking at the company will be acquired by a bigger player?
Right. Yeah, I think our plan really is at the moment is to focus and have a success here with our appraisal well and drilling. Move this to a development plan, get that 20-year license. With that 20-year license, move into obviously into production. Is there a target turnaround and sell the company? I would say there isn't a specific target such as that. I mean, obviously we'll be opportunistic, and if somebody comes along and sees more value and wants to do more investment, or it's something that we see a value difference, then yeah, we would consider those kinds of things. But I always go into these things looking at it from the perspective of let's do it as if we're going to continue to run it and develop it, and even someday abandon it even to that extent. But for now, it's we've got some very early important steps to get that license established and get that production going and build that value. And that value, of course, hopefully will translate to value to our shareholders that are participating with us.
Okay, great.
So our approach is we're not going after let's say like we did before, the high risk, high reward in Iraq. I would say that this is a significantly lower risk. There is always risk, of course, with any oil and gas type opportunities and activity do. And this is, appraisal well. So, but we're going into areas where it's onshore. It's got oil. It's proven from before. People have come and they've gone. They've left cost recovery pools that help us with the economics. And I think quite important as well. I think, Joe, you'd asked me this question earlier, might not have fully answered it. When it comes to the cost, I mean, I think when we originally took this on, the initial AFE cost was something like $2.8 million. And we're now at 1.4 on a single well, which usually your single well costs are significantly higher. How can we achieve that? Well, we're doing that because we've got a team that is focused on finding the best services at the best costs. Yes, we're seeing reduction in costs because of people are hungry for work, but we're also doing things differently. We've hired a drilling company, as we announced, major drilling out of Canada. They're worldwide with over 700 rigs. What we're not using just a very standard conventional rig. What we're using is a hydraulic coring rig that's fit for purpose to be able to drill these shallow 500-meter wells, have smaller footprints, smaller mob costs, but yet still get the job done, safely, protecting the environment, of course, and getting to that reservoir and getting additional information, actually, because we're coring, and it's a better way of coring than conventional rigs, and it has less damaging effects on the reservoir. So all of these things are what we want to repeat, not just here in West Sulawesi, but why can't we go and do some of the same things in other shallow to medium depths in other places? I think this is something that our drilling contractor is also keenly looking at and would like to expand their business on in the oil and gas sector.
But Richard, sorry to interrupt you, but when it sees, or to summarize so far, is at the moment you have this one project. Okay, for sure it's lower risk than it was in history, was production there, but they never use modern technologies to build the production there. What you're doing when the results from the drillings are not at what you expect?
I mean, very good question. So, you know, the first question you got to ask is why, you know, or what could be the reasons why, let's say, the productivity isn't what it is. You know, again, I think that, I mean, that we would think that the chances of not finding oil and gas are pretty. The bigger question, I think, is what will the rates be? And I think most likely would be because the reservoir quality, let's say, is not as good. It's a tighter sand than we expected. Then that's why, again, why we're doing cores and why we're doing the logging and why we're doing the testing. To determine these things, because then we may have the opportunity to solve challenge that we might see. So, you know, again, looking at requiring small to access the reservoir better and get better fluids, or these sands are thick enough, or at least we believe they're thick enough, which, you know, has been transformational for us here in Canada and in the United States, and of course, other places around the world. So we do have the deeper zone, which we had gas and condensates to surface, that we could look at that more closely. But I think also that's another reason why we're looking at other opportunities, so that we're not just a one-shot type opportunity here, and that we'll have something else beyond Budong. We feel we've got a very good shareholder base. We feel that we're getting the attention, and that we'll be able to do more things and be able to access more capital. Slide that's up right now is just showing the early seeps, the early success. To see some of the mapping. I'll point out real quick, there is another structure up here that has been mapped quite some time ago, but not drilled, the Maginine structure. It's you know, based on what we see from the seismic here, it's probably some 2 to 3 times larger. It probably would have been a preferred location to go to first, if it had not been for the fact that this has got an offset well. This is across several seismic lines, and this also had an area where we could access quite easily with getting landowner permissions, etc. We also have several opportunities down through here as well. So the resource report on this particular structure, based on what we see in that original well, basically comes up with roughly an 80 million barrel original oil in place, not a small number, and about just under 16 million barrels of prospective recoverable unrisked. And I always go to the unrisked number versus the risk, because ultimately you either hit or you don't. So this is either 0 or it's going to be something else. We have not added any of the other leads and prospects we have. We have a number of those. We wanted to just focus on where we could get to production development, and then we'll look at those opportunities once we have a 20-year license. And I guess I should just mention on that note, just the PSC contract summary. Here's that 10-year license, which is expiring, but it can be moved to a 20-year based on a discovery. There is a royalty of 10%. The cost recovery is 100% government, and we do have, you know, some previous 80 million that's been spent.
So, jetzt haben wir den Richard ja komplett verloren. Er war aber ja soweit einigermaßen durch. ist natürlich nicht schön, aber die Kanadier haben halt, das Internet ist da halt noch nicht so verbreitet. Ja, setzt sich ja eh nicht durch, wie der Joe weiß. Ja, aber gut, wir schauen einfach mal. Ich hoffe mal, dass die mit dem Drill Rigs besser umgehen können als mit ihrem Wi-Fi. Und ja, da eigentlich sollte ich ja jetzt, wie Sie mir mal sagen, ich sollte ja eine deutsche Zusammenfassung machen, aber da ich ja das Glück habe, den Joe Brunner hier dabei zu haben, macht er jetzt den Job und macht die deutsche Zusammenfassung für Sie.
Ja, da sieht man, wie der Kollege Adams ist ein bisschen arbeitsfaul. Nein, ist ja schon spät am Abend und deswegen wollen wir ihm das gönnen. Ich kann Ihnen natürlich nur meinen Zusammenblick geben. Ich habe zwar auch einen Conflict of Interest, bin ich draufgekommen. Die Sonoro ist ja Kunde bei unserer Nachrichtenagentur habe Press. Muss aber ehrlicherweise sein, da stehe ich großteils darüber. Für mich ist wichtig, was das Projekt kann, und da schaut es einmal insofern auf ein paar wichtige Punkte. Erstens einmal, die Company war früher in dem Irak, ist jetzt gewechselt nach Indonesien. Irak war nicht so unbedingt das Gelbe vom Ei, wie wir so schön sagen, not the yellow from the egg, aber ja, deswegen haben sie nach Alternativen gesucht, und Irak war halt High Risk, High Reward, also hohes Risiko, aber wenn es klappt, natürlich großer Profit. Indonesien, das Gebiet, was sie sich ausgesucht haben oder das sie akquirieren haben können, ist jetzt eher genau das Gegenteil. Aktionärstruktur schaut einmal sehr gut aus, 177 Millionen ist zwar nicht unbedingt wenig draußen, 10 Cent sind ungefähr knapp unter 20 Millionen Market. Management und Friends and Family haben einen sehr hohen Anteil, und das letzte große Placement, was sie gemacht haben, die sind auch noch restricted, die Aktien. Das sind sozusagen sehr viele in festen Händen. So, kommen wir aber zum Projekt selber. Indonesien ist mittlerweile ein Importeur, war früher ein Exporteur, ist auch Mitglied, soweit ich weiß, der OPEC, obwohl sie mittlerweile schon Importeur sind. So, was ist wirklich spannend an dem ganzen Projekt? An diesem Projekt ist schon wirklich sehr viel auch in der Historie, und man sieht es ab 1898 gearbeitet worden. Da sind schon mehrere Bohrlöcher gedrillt worden, da ist auch schon was gefunden worden, das hat auch schon teilweise produziert, aber es ist noch nie richtige moderne Technologie verwendet worden. Es hat 2007 bis 2015, und habe es ist nicht gerade eine kleine Firma, dort einen tieferen Horizont, der hat da eine Grafik gehabt, das war hier, hat ein tiefes Bohrloch gebohrt, weil die wollten unten mehr oder weniger tiefere Schichten anbohren und haben aber da ein bisschen Schiffbruch erleidet. Das hat nicht so funktioniert, wie es sein soll. Sie wollen sich auf eine obere Schicht, die nur um 500 Meter sind, bei dem anderen haben sie 200 Kilo aufgekommen bei dem Bohrloch, dann ist das schon eine vernünftige Größenordnung. Die Kosten sind natürlich dann auch viel überschaubarer, 1,4 Millionen ungefähr rechnet dafür das Bohrloch, was sie jetzt kostet, also dass das jetzt kostet. Warum kostet es so viel? Weil relativ wenig Infrastruktur ist. Das sehe ich ein bisschen aus Negativum natürlich auch, weil die Infrastruktur noch nicht vorhanden ist. Das ist kein Gebiet, das dort aktiv bewirtschaftet wird mit Öl. Hat allerdings, er hat gesagt, der Port ist in der Nähe von 12-14 Kilometer, das heißt, es kann relativ leicht gemacht werden. Das ist ähnlich wie dem Gebiet, was er in Albanien, glaube ich, war das, genau, was sie gehabt haben, wo sich dann mehr oder weniger Raffinerie in der Nähe war, beziehungsweise haben sie es nach Italien dann verschifft. So, und was auch wichtig ist, wenn Sie dementsprechend die Formation bestätigen, dann können Sie ungefähr 40 Bohrlöcher machen. Und 40 Bohrlöcher bei 100 Barrels war das immerhin 4000 Barrels. Das ist kein horizontales Bohrloch, das gefrackt wird. Das heißt, es ist auch sehr kontinuierlich, sehr stabile Produktionsraten. Das heißt, die produzieren auch dann tatsächlich 10, 15, 20 Jahre mit einer sehr stabilen Rate. Und dann kommt man auf ein Feld, das zwischen 4 und 12.000 Barrels produzieren kann, wenn alles hittet, wie sie hittet, oder wie es jetzt momentan das Reservoir ausschaut. Und sie genug Informationen haben, das sieht man auch daran, dass ja dort bereits 80 Millionen Dollar investiert worden ist. Und das ist eigentlich der Riesen-Benefit daraus. Also sie haben das eigentlich Gebiet zusammengeschrumpft auf 2 Projekte, die sie sich fokussieren wollen. Und jetzt das Schöne ist bei ihrem Kontrakt, wenn sie sozusagen was finden, dann sind die ersten 80 Millionen sozusagen frei. Das heißt, sie brauchen dafür keine Steuern zahlen, weil danach, wenn das dann aufgebraucht ist, also diese ganzen Kosten mehr oder weniger, die Vorgängerfirmen auch investiert haben, rückgezahlt sind, dann splittet das in 37,5 fürs Government und 32,5 für den Contractor. Und nach Steuer heißt es eigentlich nur 35%, weil 44% Income Tax und Distribution Tax drauf ist. Also, aber die ersten 80 Millionen sind frei. Wenn die einmal wirklich tatsächlich einmal 80 Millionen produzieren, dann steht der Aktienkurs ganz woanders und dann haben sie auch ganz andere Projekte wahrscheinlich schon an der Pipeline. Also von daher, wenn die es hittet, dann sind die ersten Jahre, kann man sagen, cash-free. Also das ist reiner Profit, der da rausgezogen wird und das ist eigentlich extrem positiv. Und er hat auch gesagt, soweit man ihn so gut verstanden hat können bei diesem Slide, dass sie, und das ist das Schöne an diesem Contract, dass sie noch Projekte, die sie in der Umgebung finden, die in ihrem Konzessionsgebiet sind, auch dazu rechnen können und sofort eigentlich in diese Produktionslizenz umwandeln können. Und das macht es natürlich ganz spannend. Ich habe mich auch gefragt, wie schaut es denn aus, wenn das Produkt nicht das bringt, was Sie erwarten. Naja, er sagt halt, Sie haben ein gutes Management-Team, das sehr wohl in der Lage ist, und Sie suchen ja auch davon, damit Sie halt von einem Projekt-Company in eine andere Company übergeführt werden mit mehreren Projekten. Und das sagt auch der Track Record, was das Management-Team hat, das sieht man hier in dieser schönen Slide, haben wir das sehr schön gesehen. Das ist sozusagen das Management-Team, was hat das in der Vergangenheit gemacht und was war der Track Record drauf. Also das heißt, wie viele Multiples waren da von den Initial Dollars, die man rausgekriegt hat, zum Verkauf. Und da war zwischen 5 und 25-fachen mehr oder weniger alles drinnen. Und das könnte auch ganz spannend sein. Dann hat ja auch der Kollege gefragt, was ist das Ziel? Ist das Ziel zum Verkauf oder ist das Ziel, selber in Produktion zu gehen? Das ist natürlich ein Mischding. Wenn man natürlich jetzt was findet, und dort produziert man raus, dann ist man natürlich sofort Produzent. Andererseits, wenn man natürlich genug Size zeigen kann, dann ist es auch interessant für regionale oder andere Gesellschaften, die dort in der Nähe sind, dass man dieses Ganze akquiriert. Und da sind sie so weit flexibel, dass sie sagen, wenn das wahrscheinlich das Angebot gut genug ist, dann werden sie halt dementsprechend verkauft. Es steht und fällt alles mit der ersten Bohrung, die sie Anfang August machen. Soweit muss das jedem klar sein. Das ist kein Home Run. Das Risiko ist deutlich niedriger aus wie im Irak, ganz klar. Warum? Weil die Vergangenheit einfach gezeigt hat, dass dort Öl ist und da war ein schönes Bild. Also wenn man das da sieht, dass es da sogar so Area of Öl, also Öl an der Oberfläche ist, dann kann man sicher sein, dass halt unter der Erde in der Regel auch etwas ist. Aber ja, weil das werden sie nicht nur hingelehrt haben, sondern.
Es sei denn, einer hat einen Ölwechsel da gemacht. Ja?
Genau, aber in der Regel zeigt es natürlich, dass dort auch diese, und genauso hat man ja auch früher in Texas und so weiter ja Öl gefunden. Man hat an der Oberfläche solche kleinen Ölseen gesehen, wo das Öl einfach an die Oberfläche gekommen ist und hat dort eigentlich angefangen zu bohren, weil Seismik und so weiter hat es damals überhaupt nicht gegeben. Dass dort ein Öl ist meine Frage, ist keine Frage meines Erachtens. Die Frage ist nur, ist es wirtschaftlich? Und genau das ist halt das Thema. Das muss man jetzt mit der ersten Bohrung einfach feststellen. Und ich sage, in 2 Monaten, 3 Monaten weiß man dann deutlich mehr. Wenn im August das gebohrt wird, dann muss man sogenannte Flow-Tests machen, dann muss das dementsprechend alles einmal gebohrt werden, gecased werden. Und das dauert halt dann einfach. Und ich würde sagen, Ende September mit einer hohen Wahrscheinlichkeit werden wir dann sagen können, ist was drinnen und wie viel ist drinnen, welche Flow-Tests kommen raus. Und dann muss man Geld natürlich in die Hand nehmen und die Infrastruktur bauen und dann gleich mehrere Bohrlöcher rein zu jagen, denn erst dann wird es wirtschaftlich, und er hat ja selber gesagt, das Mobilisieren des Rigs kostet relativ viel und deswegen sollte man halt dann auch gleich einmal die nächsten Bohrlöcher machen, wenn natürlich das auch führend ist, also dass das auch ölführend ist und das Reservoir groß genug ist, um es anzuzapfen. Ja, das war es eigentlich so als Summarize. Das ist sicher nicht unspannend, aber man spekuliert halt drauf, dass sie im August dementsprechend hitten. Wenn sie hitten, dann schaut es gut aus. Wenn sie nicht hitten, muss die Company nach neuen Projekten suchen. Ja, das wäre sozusagen mein Summary. meines laienhaften Zusammenfassung dieses interessanten Gespräches, auch wenn leider zum Schluss, muss man leider ehrlicherweise sagen, die Audioverbindung abgerissen ist und da kann man leider nichts machen, so ist es halt in Zeiten. Aber Internet setzt ja nicht durch, also von daher muss man leider mit sowas rechnen.
Genau. Also auf jeden Fall nochmal auch von meiner Seite vielen Dank, dass du A teilgenommen hast und B auch für diese gute Zusammenfassung. Ja, ich sehe es halt ähnlich. Also wir müssten jetzt halt, wer sehr risikobereit ist, der geht natürlich jetzt kurz vor den Boergebnissen, also quasi jetzt rein in die Aktie und spekuliert auf gute Boergebnisse. Und wer dann da noch ein bisschen sicherer sein kann und vielleicht oder sein möchte, ja, lässt vielleicht ein paar Prozent liegen, ja, und kann aber dann nach positiven Boergebnissen, wenn sobald die veröffentlicht werden, halt mit mehr Sicherheit in die Aktie reingehen. Nochmal, sowohl der Joe als auch ich, ja, wir haben beide einen Interessenkonflikt aus diversen Gründen. Ich bin auch noch Aktionär, also deswegen drücke ich natürlich beide Daumen, ja, dass sie hitten, ja, im August. Und ja, auf jeden Fall werde ich Sie weiter auf dem Laufenden halten. Ich werde auch nochmal versuchen, mit dem Richard da irgendwie zu konferieren, ja, dass wir ihn mal irgendwie vielleicht mal über Skype oder so kriegen, dass er dann noch mal ein bisschen mehr erzählen kann und dann nicht unterbrochen wird. Aber von mir war es das. Vielen Dank erst nochmal, aber Joe hat nochmal das finale Wort.
Genau. Ja, deswegen, meine Frage ist jetzt, also es ist, glaube ich, keine Frage, dass Sie nicht hitten. Also ich glaube, wenn man sich das anschaut, das ist keine Frage, dass sie nicht hitten. Die Frage ist nur, ist es wirtschaftlich förderbar?
Ja.
Das ist jetzt die Frage. Denn dass dort Öl ist, das glaube ich sofort, da sind 80 Millionen reingeflossen, die Firmen hätten nie so viel Geld investiert. Öl ist meines Erachtens dort. Die Frage ist nur, kann es wirtschaftlich gefördert werden?
Genau, das ist die große Frage, die dann hoffentlich im August für uns beantwortet wird und dann sehen wir weiter. In diesem Sinne, vielen Dank fürs Zusehen und fette Beute.
Genau, fette Beute.